Hi, I'm Dr. Charlene Walters, author, business and branding mentor, trainer, as well as your host for Launch, a business talk show for anyone who wants to launch their business, their career, or their life. Hi everyone, welcome to Launch. I'm your host, Charlene Walters, of course. I'm so happy to be here today because I have a special episode for you. This is a travel edition of Launch, and I'm going to be sharing a recent trip I had to Rome, Florence, and Malta. I hope you'll enjoy it. Start this episode off with my first stop. Just landed in Rome, fresh off the airplane, was exhausted, needed to change clothes, needed to brush teeth. My hotel wasn't ready yet, so just kind of wandering around, we stumbled upon this beautiful cathedral, the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore, located in Rome. It was built in 432 by the Pope at the time, who apparently had a dream about the Virgin Mary at that very site and created this beautiful basilica. And it was gorgeous in all of its architecture. It had beautiful, beautiful stained glass, very ornate, very beautiful statues everywhere. And you just felt this sense of peace, this sense of calm, this sense of spirituality there. And just the beauty was breathtaking. Definitely even more beautiful because it was something that we hadn't planned to go to. We just sort of stumbled upon it, but again, just amazing in its beauty, architecture, and just the peacefulness that surrounded us there. So the next stop on our itinerary was a visit to the Roman Colosseum. And this was, of course, after we checked into the hotel, changed our clothes, brushed our teeth, kind of got into the Roman spirit here, and it was just magnificent. It was built between 72 and 80 AD. Imagine the manpower that must have gone into this. Just truly exceptional with the limestone. And this was the largest amphitheater ever built at the time, and still to this day, despite its age. And many events took place here. The gladiators were here, there were battles here, there were contests, and even executions, unfortunately. It could hold anywhere between 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. I had the opportunity to walk all around, to look at it from many different angles, and again, just amazing and magnificent, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to check it out. It was like stepping back in time, just absolutely incredible. So after we left the Colosseum, we went down to Palatine Hill, which is just steps away from the Colosseum. And this is one of the oldest parts of the city. It had all the beautiful rich houses back in the day, buildings now that still remain there, used to be just the place to live. And now it's today more of an open air museum, just a beautiful place to walk around and just marvel at what's left behind there. I was, again, just thrilled to be there, transported back in time. So the next stop, again, very close to the others, was the Roman Forum, which is just amazing. It's a rectangular plaza surrounded by government buildings from back in the day. Now, of course, they're ruins. They've seen their better times, of course, but there is so much beauty in this site and in the decay of this site and just the amazing architecture. And you can imagine yourself back in the day walking around this very plaza and just immersing yourself in that moment in time. Definitely something to be seen and appreciated. So later on in the evening, we met up with some friends at the Trevi Fountain. This is one of the oldest and largest Baroque fountains in the city. It was built between 1732 to 1762, so it took quite a while to make it, but it was absolutely magnificent, worth seeing, even though it was very crowded there. Definitely worth seeing. When you're here, you're supposed to take a coin in your right hand and throw it over your left shoulder into the fountain. It's said that around 3,000 euro per day are thrown into the fountain and it needs to be collected, etc. So that's quite a bit of money thrown in each year. And there is also this tale that if you throw a coin into this particular fountain, you will be back to Rome again. So of course, I did throw a coin into the fountain, and you should too if you ever find yourself at this famous Trevi fountain. So we were only in Rome for a short while before we made our way to Florence. And Florence is actually the capital city of Tuscany region in Italy. And it's also the birthplace of the Renaissance, known for its incredible artwork and its rich culture. When we checked into our hotel room, which was just gorgeous, it had the most amazing view of the city and the Duomo, the famous Duomo, the most spectacular sight in all of Florence. It was just beautiful. So on our first night in Florence, we had the pleasure of going to the Galleria di Accademia, which is an art museum and gallery in Florence. And there we were able to see the statue of David by Michelangelo, which he made in 1501. Just so big and massive and amazing. The artistry, the detail, the size of it, and just the fame involved with this statue. Again, it's a statue of David and Goliath. Just incredible. We had the opportunity to wander around the museum, which closed down for our group, and just to see this masterpiece up close and personal. During the first few days in Florence, we spent a lot of time walking around, and we got to see all of the food, the architecture, the gelato, the leather goods. So many things that Florence is known for in their marketplaces, just the friendly spirit of the Italian people here. So on the next night, we went to a vineyard in Chianti in the Tuscany region, of course, and we had the best food and tasty wine and just a wonderful night overlooking the beautiful vineyards and the rolling hills, spending time with our friends and having a blast. And we even got the special treat of being sung to and serenaded. Just a magical night at this vineyard. We were able to do so much more walking all around Florence, and we got to walk down by the river, and we saw much shopping there too along the river, where there was lots of jewelry, leather goods, everything you can think of, just a mecca for making those special purchases on your trip. We also got to see some gondolas going down the river, which was really quite spectacular. And there was even a carousel that we saw in the plaza that you could go on and you could walk by, and really just gave you that feeling of joy as you meandered around. During our time in Florence, we were also able to stop at the Pitti Palace, which was actually purchased in 1550 by Medici and his wife Eleanor, and now is made into a museum with 5 different areas to look at all sorts of artwork and statues. Amazing, the artistry. I was able to walk around from room to room, taking it all in, looking at the beautiful paintings and the intricate details, and the ceilings were even painted as well. Just beautiful magnificence, opulence, splendor everywhere as far as the eye could see. And you're able to run around, or walk around more so, and just really have a feast for your eyes looking at these beautiful pieces of art and just imagining what it was like to live in this palace back in the day. Definitely highly recommend. And again, another place we just sort of stumbled upon when we were looking for things to do and walking around, and it's just so characteristic of the beauty in Florence. So outside the Pitti Palace are the Boboli Gardens, and this is an Italian style garden full of statues and fountains and just beautiful. You can walk around endlessly there. Such an amazing place to be. You walk up the steps, up the back, and just so complimentary to the Pitti Palace and the artwork that you saw inside. Definitely worth the trip. One of my favorite nights in Florence was when we got the opportunity to see some real life Italian opera singers, and I will let them take it from here because I cannot describe and do justice to what I saw. While we were in Florence, we were also able to make a day trip to this cute little town called Lucca, which is known as a city of art. We had such a magnificent time there, and we're even able to stop and get this magnificent lunch and pizza while we were in town. Again, pizza everywhere. We really love the food in Italy. Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to go to Pisa to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Pisa, of course, is a city in Tuscany, and it's really famous for the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which has an almost 4-degree lean due to its unstable foundation. There's not a lot else to do here in Pisa, but it is fascinating to see the tower, to see its lean, to amaze yourself at this structure that you've heard about all your life, probably, if you're anything like me. And you can also stop and do a little shopping here too, but highly recommend popping in just to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You can even get a tour and go up into it if you'd like. If you know me, you know that I love being at the beach, being by the water. And while we were in Pisa, I was fortunate enough to go to the marina there and see what the beach looked like. And it was interesting because it was a very rocky beach, and I saw people lying out on the rocks just like it was every day, as if it was a nice, soft, sandy beach there. Just really magnificent to see the water and to take it all in. There were lots of little restaurants and shops and gelato places, of course, close by. worth the extra trip to go see the marina there at Pisa. We also, on our trip, had the chance to go to a tiny town called San Gimignano, which is actually known as the Manhattan of the Middle Ages, if you can believe it. And there were lots of shopping there. Anything you want, you can get there in this market square. You can get leather, of course. Florence is known for their leather goods and for their fashion, shoes everywhere. Anything that you could dream of, you can find it here, and definitely worth it, particularly for souvenirs and just those one-of-a-kind things you can only find here in Italy. I highly recommend it. After a day of shopping at San Gimignano, we were able to go to a vineyard there, and it was so spectacular. It has been in the same family for hundreds of years. We were able to take a tour there and to see all the barrels of wine they had stored there, to find out more about the process and to look at the bottles they've been storing in the family in the vaults there. We had lunch and just got to take in the beautiful sights of the vineyards, far as the eye could see, the rolling hills, immediately what you think of when you think of Tuscany. On another evening in Florence, we were able to go to the Villa di Maiano, which is actually the place where they filmed the movie A Room with a View in 1985. It has Helena Bonham Carter and Daniel Day-Lewis in it. I'm not sure if you've ever watched the movie, but this is where it took place. Just a very spectacular home, and definitely had a view that was worth mentioning in the title of a movie. So while we're in Italy, we got to see a lot of beautiful sights and take in a lot of culture and artwork, but I would be lying if I didn't tell you that one of our favorite parts of the trip was the food. I think we were having a pizza every day, and each and every dish that we got came out like a piece of art. It was tasty and beautiful, and we definitely had our fill of the food in Italy. So if you are a foodie, you should definitely hit Florence and Rome. So sadly, we eventually had to leave Rome, but we were lucky enough to go to Malta. And Malta is an island in southern Europe. It's in between Italy and Liberia in the Mediterranean Sea. Oh my gosh, this was so beautiful. And we had a spectacular hotel right on the water. We could look out our room and see the sea and the beautiful sights that were there. It's a cultural melting pot of many different places. They speak several languages there. There are lots of restaurants. It's also known for its nightlife, and there are around 516,000 people living there. So something you definitely want to see if you have the opportunity to. There are sidewalks that are marble there. Again, cannot stress enough how beautiful it is there. The hotel we stayed at in Malta was also spectacular, as are many of the hotels there. You can see through the splendor. There was a spa. There were so many restaurants on site, and just the marble everywhere, I think, is breathtaking. When we were in Malta, we got to spend some time lying out on the beach, of course, and by the spectacular pools. But we also decided to take a boat cruise around the island. And that turned out to be such a special experience. We had our own private cabin in the boat, and we took the trip around the island. We saw the Dengley Cliffs, which are famous, and they are just breathtaking to see from the sea, from that vantage point. The water is so blue. And we ultimately ended up in a spot known as the Blue Lagoon, which I'm sure you've heard of before. This is the spot where they filmed the movie Blue Lagoon, which you probably remember with Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins. And the water was so turquoise and so spectacular. And I even got to have some time to swim there in the Blue Lagoon itself. And we took also a speedboat cruise that went in and out of the cliffs surrounding it. Just something one of a kind that you definitely don't want to miss. Loved Malta. I know that it's not a common tourist destination, but it's definitely worth visiting. And with that, it's time to wrap up our special travel edition of Launch. Again, I'm your host, Charlene Walters. Hope to see you out there on our next trip.